Scalability is not only an interesting topic, but it is also a topic where you cannot really find the resources teaching you scalability from zero to being a software engineering expert on the subject. I do not know really many courses which do that job well. Some courses are concentrating on some parts, and it's not like you can download an ebook on calculus and understand this topic from zero to being an expert, at least in part one, but you need to gather your resources. So this is why we are very much interested in the software engineering podcast, to push through and try to aggregate a few more resources about this topic. So without further ado, let's begin. So the first question to ask about scalability is whether it is a business problem or a technological problem. Well, you can think originally about scalability as merely a high-tech problem where you need to scale your database or services. However, you need to remember that the scalability problem has been existing throughout the human history. So we needed to know how to scale our food growth. We needed to know how to scale our car manufacturing growth. And when you do upgrades in your scalability, in your high-tech business, you can view them as reflection of real physical processes which you also scale. So it's important to note first that when we discuss scalability, it is not merely a technological aspect. It is not just a set of diagram or blocks where you split your requests into multiple servers. It's a real-life situation and problem which you solve in surprisingly similar ways in both low-tech and high-tech industries. So when you have an organization, you have people. These people, some of them, the architects at least, or the senior developers, or if you're a small company, then all developers are the one creating the high-level architecture of your solution. So the first thing to note is that we are talking about people who are creating technology. So if you choose the right organization structure, and then you will be able to create better architecture. Now, when you choose your organization structure, you need to take into account a few considerations. Some of them is how much communication do you need between people. You want the least amount of communication which will allow people to do a great job. Obviously, if people need to communicate too much one with another, then not only your business will not grow fast and will not be scalable, but also the architectures they create will be of less optimal aligned with the solution you want. Another question to ask is whether you should have rules, tight rules in your organization, because you can choose to have very tight rules and processes, but it can also hinder your ability to scale, because if you impose too many rules on the people, they have some less space to grow. Now you can say that you apply a rule that enable people to grow, but usually this is not the case, and you need to be able to break your rules in order to scale. You need to be able to have creative thinking, and creative thinking in many times is going very well with some breaking of the rules. So If we look at most of the high growth companies of today's, and like the top 5 companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, Twitter, you see that the CEOs are coming from a technological background, which makes you think that people with a technological background can create in today's atmosphere more scalable solutions. Now it is indeed very important for anyone to be aware of the architectural decisions you need to make. So how do you divide the scalability responsibilities in your organization, or how do you do long-term scalability decisions in favor of a short-term decision? We will cover these questions, but first let's dig into more technological aspects of scalability and not just the overview as we did so far. So, when you take any solution or any product you create, the basic question to ask is, how do you scale it? Well, you have multiple ways of doing that process. First, you can duplicate. I mean, if you have one person servicing the requests coming from customers or other customers, then you can simply duplicate or hire more people. And the same goes with the servers. If you have mainly a stateless server, then the basic way in which you scale your solution is to simply create duplicates of this server. Now, this is the most simplest solution, and it has its drawbacks, but it has many advantages. Its main advantage is that it is very, very simple to implement, but it is also limited because you cannot always do that. So the first rule that we had is that if you have a solution or a service or a server that you create that responds to requests, if it is mainly stateless, then you can simply duplicate it. And the same goes with a database, which is yet another service, yes? And file system and whatever. You simply duplicate it to allow for servicing more requests. Now, usually what people are doing is that if you need to store some state, if you have a database and you need to store state, then you have the problem of which server to access in order to store this state. Because if we have, let's say, a user named John, and we want to update its name, so if we access one server and update its name, and let's say that we have another process which updates its address and it accesses server B, then the problem might be that one update might overlap the other update, and if you do read evaluate store, then read evaluate write, then you might simply overwrite the other change. So what many solutions do is that they require you to contact one server to do all the writes through a single server, and then to do via replication the reads by accessing other servers. But if you don't want to do that, then for this specific scenario, you might need to apply some solutions which can do it in a more distributed way. It's called an agreement protocol like Raft or Paxos. And this way you can contact more than one servers, and they need to agree on the solution. They do some processing before they do the actual update. But what is important to understand from this simple first rule is that we simply duplicate our service. This is rather trivial, right? We simply duplicate our service so we can service more requests. And you can do this, as we said, in any component. You simply duplicate the instances of the database, you duplicate the instances of the server. Now, this is very naive, but it's good. Actually, it's good that it's naive because it forces you to choose simple solutions. And if you choose simple solutions, then you can apply this rule. Now, we will see in further segments that when you cannot apply such a simple rule, or when your scale is too high, then you cannot simply use this method. You will need to apply more methods into your scalability solution. So the first rule is simply to duplicate. It's very dumb. You simply duplicate your services or a database. So this is it. So I'll see you next time when we continue with next rule and other methods of scaling your services. Thank you.